Implied odds. As you already know, pot odds describe the relationship between the amount you need to pay and the possible winnings. Using pot odds, you can decide whether a call is profitable. The possible winnings here is just the money that is already in the pot. If you find yourself in a situation where you get pot odds where a call wouldn't be profitable and you should fold, it is worth taking another look at the implied odds. Implied odds also include within the possible winnings money that you can win on the following streets. They can counteract the inadequate pot odds that would force you to fold and make a call profitable in hindsight. To find out whether you can call profitably due to implied odds, you first need to calculate how much you would need to win to make the call profitable in hindsight. Then you need to estimate whether or not you can really win this amount. And lastly, you need to evaluate the strength of your draw. Will you really have the best hand and therefore win the pot if your draw hits? Step 1. How much do you still need to win? Have a look at the following example. You have a flush draw on the flop, and your opponent bets $5 into a pot of $5. The pot size is therefore $10. This means you are getting pot odds of 2 to 1. To call profitably with a flush draw, you however need pot odds of 4 to 1. You would therefore have to fold in this situation. A call would be profitable if the pot size wasn't $10 but $20. The difference is $10. This is the amount that you still need to win if you were to call with insufficient odds. The implied odds show the relationship between the amount you have to pay and the possible winnings, that, in contrast to the pot odds, also take into account future bets of your opponent. In the second step, you now need to find out whether you can really still win this amount. This depends on the hand strength of your opponent. If your flush hits on the turn and you bet, your opponent needs a strong hand to call you and pay you off. The principal characteristics of your opponent are of importance here. Against players that often bet themselves or call a lot, it is more likely that you can still win the required amount on the turn and river. Another criterion is how obvious your hand is. A made flush can be obvious to your opponent and stop him from calling your bets. Your position, of course, also plays a role, since the information advantage from the later position leads to better decisions. In position, you can call for implied odds better than you can out of position. In the last step, you should ask yourself if you really will have the best hand when your draw hits. In this case, you have a K-high flush draw, which gives you 9 outs. However, if your opponent holds the ace of hearts, all these outs are useless and you will always be behind with a flush. If your opponent has 8 and 6 of hearts, you're also missing outs. The 8 and 6 are of course not in the deck anymore. The 5 and the 10 give your opponent a straight flush. You therefore only have 5 outs. Another example, you hold AJ off suit and could give yourself 6 overcard outs. But your opponent could be holding these hands. Against sets or 2 pairs, you don't have any outs. These outs are unclean, since you won't be holding the best hand when your draw hits. Instead of implied odds, you have so-called reverse implied odds. You will on average lose more money than you win and should therefore discount these outs. Let's summarize. Implied odds are modified odds that look at possible future winnings. They look at the relationship between the pot and the estimated future bets of your opponent with the amount that you still need to pay. With these assumptions, you can call a draw with incorrect odds, keeping in mind that you still need to discount unclean outs.